The Arctic wind howled across the fractured ice shelf, carrying whispers of a legend that no human had ever witnessed. In the frozen wasteland, where survival demands everything and mercy offers nothing, two titans were destined to meet. One ruled the endless white expanse with claws forged by evolution itself. The other commanded the depths with teeth that could shatter bone in milliseconds. This is the story of when ice met ocean, when land predator faced sea hunter, when the impossible became inevitable. Deep within the Canadian Arctic, where the sun barely kissed the horizon for months at a time, a colossal polar bear emerged from his winter den. His name was Kodiak, though no human had ever spoken it. Standing 11 feet tall on his hind legs and weighing nearly 1,500 pounds, he was a living fortress of muscle and fur. His massive paws, each the size of dinner plates, pressed into the snow with authority that spoke of countless hunts across the frozen tundra. Steam rose from his nostrils in the bitter cold, creating ghostly clouds that vanished into the endless white. Hunger gnawed at his belly like a living thing. The seal hunting had been sparse this season, forcing him to venture farther from familiar territory than ever before. His black eyes, sharp as obsidian, scanned the horizon where ice met water in jagged formations. The scent of salt and fish drifted on the wind, promising sustenance somewhere beyond the ice edge. Every instinct in his ancient bloodline urged him forward toward the dark waters that promised either feast or peril. Miles beneath the surface of the Arctic Ocean, another apex predator carved through the frigid depths with mechanical precision. She was known to marine biologists as Deep Blue, though she had earned far darker names among those who studied her kind. 23 feet of pure evolutionary perfection, she weighed over 5,000 pounds of muscle, cartilage, and predatory intent. Her triangular dorsal fin cut through the water like a blade, leaving turbulence that smaller fish felt from hundreds of yards away. Her black eyes, devoid of emotion, yet filled with intelligence older than human civilization, tracked the electromagnetic signatures of life above. Beneath the ice shelf, schools of Arctic char moved in nervous formations, their silver bodies flashing like scattered coins in the filtered sunlight. But her attention was drawn to something else entirely. The vibrations reaching her lateral line spoke of movement on the ice above, something massive and unfamiliar. Great whites rarely ventured this far north, but Deep Blue was no ordinary predator. Climate changes had driven her prey into colder waters, and she had adapted where others of her kind had perished. Her body temperature ran several degrees warmer than the surrounding water, a biological furnace that allowed her to hunt in conditions that would slow lesser sharks to helplessness. She was evolution's answer to changing seas, a perfect killing machine that had learned to thrive where ice and ocean collided. The convergence began as Kodiak approached the ice edge with calculated steps. Each footfall tested the frozen surface beneath him, generations of Arctic wisdom guiding his movements across the treacherous terrain. The ice here was different, newer and less stable than the ancient shelves he knew. Cracked spiderweb beneath his weight, creating a symphony of groans and snaps that echoed across the barren landscape. Below, Deep Blue felt every vibration through her acute sensory system. The rhythmic impacts above registered as something she had never encountered before. Too large to be a seal, too heavy to be a walrus, The creature moving across the ice sparked curiosity in her predatory mind. She began to ascend slowly, her massive bulk rising through the water column with the grace of a shadow given substance. Kodiak reached the edge where solid ice gave way to dark water. Here, where two worlds met in an eternal dance of freezing and thawing, he paused. His keen nose detected the rich scent of fish below, but something else lingered in the salt air. Something ancient and dangerous that spoke to the deepest parts of his survival instincts. He had faced other bears, wolves, and even desperate humans, but this scent carried the promise of something entirely different. The water below was deceptively calm, its surface broken only by the gentle lapping against the ice edge. But Kodiak's experienced eyes caught the subtle signs that spoke of life beneath. The way certain patches of water moved with purpose rather than current. The occasional flash of silver as fish scattered from some unseen presence. The almost imperceptible change in watercolor that suggested something massive lurking just beyond sight. Deep Blue positioned herself directly beneath the ice shelf, her massive form suspended in the water column like a living torpedo. Through the clear Arctic water, she could see the shadow above, larger than anything she had ever encountered on the surface. Her ancient brain processed the information with calculated precision. This was not prey in any traditional sense, but neither was it a threat she recognized. It was something new, something that demanded investigation. The tension built like pressure in a volcanic chamber. Two apex predators, each supreme in their respective domains, were about to meet at the boundary between their worlds. Neither had evolved to face the other. Neither had any frame of reference for what was about to unfold. The Arctic wind continued its relentless howl, as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. Kodiak extended one massive paw toward the water's edge, testing the stability of a partially submerged ice shelf. The frozen platform groaned under his weight, but held firm. His reflection wavered in the dark water below, a distorted image of white fur and black eyes that seemed to pierce the depths. He had no way of knowing that something far below was studying that very reflection with equal intensity. In the depths, Deep Blue's tail moved in slow, powerful sweeps that maintained her position without creating surface disturbance. Her gill slits filtered the frigid water as she calculated distance, trajectory, and opportunity. The shadow above had moved closer to the water's edge, presenting possibilities that triggered every hunting instinct in her DNA. But this was unlike any hunt she had ever contemplated. The stage was set for an encounter that would defy every natural law both predators understood. Ice and ocean, land and sea, Arctic hunter and marine killer were about to collide in a confrontation that neither evolution nor nature had ever intended. The question was no longer if they would meet, but what would happen when 1,500 pounds of polar fury faced 5,000 pounds of oceanic death. The Arctic held its breath as two worlds prepared to explode into violence. The first contact came without warning. Kodiak's massive paw broke through the surface tension, sending ripples cascading across the dark water. The cold bit into his fur like thousands of frozen needles, but his attention was locked on something far more pressing. Below the surface, a shadow moved with purpose that no fish possessed. Something immense and predatory circled beneath the ice shelf, its presence felt rather than seen. Deep Blue registered the disturbance above with surgical precision. The water displacement, the change in light patterns, the electromagnetic signature of a massive warm-blooded creature, all triggered responses buried deep in her neural pathways. She had stalked seals at ice edges before, but this was different. This creature moved with the confidence of an apex predator, unaware that it had entered the domain of something equally lethal. The great white began her ascent, her torpedo-shaped body cutting through the water with mechanical efficiency. Each sweep of her crescent tail propelled 5,000 pounds of muscle and cartilage toward the surface. Her black eyes remained fixed on the shadow above, calculating distance and angle with the precision of a living weapon system. This was not hunting as she knew it. This was investigation of the deadliest kind. Kodiak sensed the change in the water before he saw it. Ripples formed where no wind could reach. The gentle lapping against the ice edge shifted to something more urgent, more purposeful. His massive head lowered closer to the surface, black nostrils flaring as he tried to identify the source of the disturbance. The scent that reached him carried undertones of something ancient and hostile, something that had never walked on ice or breathed Arctic air. Then she breached. Deep Blue's massive head broke the surface with explosive force, sending cascades of water across the ice shelf. Her black eyes locked onto Kodiak's in a moment of mutual recognition that transcended species. Here was another apex predator, another killer shaped by millions of years of evolution. The polar bear's massive frame tensed as every survival instinct screamed warnings his ancestors had never needed to hear. The shark's gaping maw revealed rows of serrated teeth, each one a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Her gills fluttered as she maintained position at the surface, her powerful tail working beneath the water to keep her massive bulk stable. Steam rose from her body where warm blood met frigid air, creating an otherworldly fog that seemed to separate reality from nightmare. Kodiak reared back on his hind legs, his 11-foot frame towering above the water's edge like a monument to Arctic dominance. His roar split the silence, a sound that had sent countless seals fleeing in terror and warned rival bears to keep their distance. But Deep Blue had never heard such a sound, and her nervous system registered it as neither threat nor retreat call. It was simply noise from a creature she had yet to categorize. The standoff stretched across heartbeats that felt like hours. Two perfect predators, each supreme in their respective domains, studied one another across the boundary that separated their worlds. Neither had ever faced anything like the other. Neither had any framework for what came next. The Arctic wind whipped between them, carrying scents and sounds that spoke of violence about to be unleashed. Deep Blue's massive head turned slightly, revealing the full scope of her bulk beneath the surface. Her dorsal fin cut above the waterline like a dark blade, while her pectoral fins spread wide to maintain stability in the foreign environment of surface interaction. Every line of her body spoke of power held in check, of violence waiting for the perfect moment to explode into motion. Kodiak dropped back to all fours, his massive paws gripping the ice edge with claws that could rend steel. His black nose twitched as he processed the alien scent rising from the water. This was not seal, not walrus, Not any creature his genetic memory recognized as either prey or competitor. This was something entirely outside his experience, something that demanded a response his kind had never needed to evolve. The great white's tail swept in slow, powerful arcs beneath the surface, maintaining her position while every sensor in her body gathered information about this massive terrestrial predator. His electromagnetic signature blazed like a beacon in her perception, speaking of a heart rate elevated by adrenaline and muscles primed for explosive action. She had stalked countless creatures at the boundary between water and air, but none had ever matched her gaze with such unflinching intensity. Then Kodiak made his choice. The massive polar bear lunged forward, his 1,500-pound frame driving toward the water with devastating force. Ice cracked beneath his assault as he committed to an attack that defied every survival instinct his species possessed. His massive jaws opened wide, revealing canine teeth designed to crush seal skulls, now aimed at something far more dangerous than any prey he had ever pursued. Deep Blue responded with the lightning reflexes of a creature that had survived countless battles in the ocean depths. Her massive head snapped upward as her jaws opened to their full terrifying span. Rows of triangular teeth, each one sharp enough to slice through bone, gleamed in the Arctic light as she drove herself partially out of the water to meet the bear's assault. The collision sent shockwaves through both ice and water. Kodiak's massive paw struck Deep Blue's snout with bone-crushing force, while her jaws snapped shut inches from his throat. The impact drove both predators backward, the bear scrambling for purchase on the cracking ice while the shark's massive bulk crashed back into the depths with explosive force. Water erupted skyward as Deep Blue's tail drove her back towards the surface. Her hide bore fresh scratches from Kodiak's claws, thin lines that leaked crimson into the frigid water. But pain was not a concept that slowed creatures like her. It was simply information to be processed and overcome. The electromagnetic signature of the massive bear above burned even brighter now. Speaking of injury and rage that matched her own building fury, Kodiak shook his massive head, droplets of salt water flying from his fur like scattered diamonds. His right paw throbbed where it had connected with the shark's hide, a sensation unlike anything he had experienced. The creature below possessed a hardness that even his tremendous strength could not easily penetrate. But retreat was not in his vocabulary. The ice beneath his feet groaned ominously, spiderweb cracks spreading from the point of impact. The great white circled beneath the ice shelf with predatory patience, her massive form visible as a dark shadow in the clear Arctic water. Each pass brought her closer to the edge where the wounded bear maintained his position. Her lateral line detected every vibration, every shift in weight as Kodiak tested the stability of his frozen platform. She had drawn first blood from countless creatures, but this one had struck back with force that demanded respect. Blood from minor wounds on both predators began to cloud the water, creating a crimson haze that spoke of violence barely begun. The scent triggered responses in Deep Blue's brain that went beyond hunger, beyond territorial defense. This was combat between equals, a test of supremacy that neither could abandon without losing something fundamental to their nature. The battle for dominance between ice and ocean had only just begun. Just begun. Kodiak's massive frame swayed as the ice beneath him continued its ominous descent toward complete collapse. Each crack that spiderwebbed outward from his position sent tremors through the frozen platform, while chunks of ice broke away and tumbled into the dark water below. The sound echoed like gunshots across the barren landscape, announcing to everything within miles that something catastrophic was unfolding at the boundary between worlds. Deep Blue felt every vibration through her lateral line system as the ice shelf began its inevitable surrender to physics and fury. The massive bear above was trapped on a platform that would soon betray him completely. Her ancient brain calculated trajectories and timing with the precision of a living computer. When the ice gave way entirely, the terrestrial giant would be forced into her domain, where every advantage would shift to her massive bulk and oceanic expertise. The polar bear's black eyes never left the circling shadow beneath the surface. Generations of Arctic wisdom screamed warnings about thin ice and deep water. But retreat was no longer an option. The creature below had marked him, challenged him in a way that touched something primal in his DNA. His massive claws dug deeper into the frozen surface, each groove a declaration that he would not yield without extracting a price that would echo through the depths. Blood continued to seep from the shallow wounds both predators had inflicted, creating crimson ribbons in the crystalline water. The metallic scent triggered responses in Deep Blue that went beyond simple feeding instinct. This was not the familiar copper tang of seal blood or the rich iron of whale flesh. This was something entirely foreign, something that spoke of a creature whose very existence challenged her understanding of the marine food chain. A thunderous crack split the Arctic silence as a section of ice shelf the size of a small building broke away from Kodiak's platform. The massive chunk crashed into the water with explosive force, sending waves cascading in all directions. The impact drove Deep Blue deeper momentarily, her powerful tail working to maintain position as displaced water hammered against her bulk. When she resurged, her black eyes held a new intensity, as if the violence of the icefall had awakened something even more dangerous within her predatory core. Kodiak scrambled backward as his platform continued to disintegrate, each step sending fresh fractures erasing across the frozen surface. His massive weight, which had been an asset in every previous battle, now worked against him with relentless physics. The ice groaned and buckled beneath him, edges crumbling away like ancient parchment touched by flame. Steam continued to rise from his nostrils in the frigid air, each breath visible proof of the furnace burning within his massive chest. The great white began to accelerate her circling pattern, her massive form cutting through the water with increasing urgency. She could sense the approaching moment when gravity would deliver her opponent directly into her element. Her gills worked harder as adrenaline flooded her system, preparing every muscle fiber for the explosive violence to come. The electromagnetic signature of the bear above blazed even brighter, speaking of elevated heart rate and muscles primed for desperate action. Then physics claimed its inevitable victory. The ice shelf collapsed with a roar that echoed across the tundra for miles. Kodiak's 1,500-pound frame crashed through the surface with devastating impact, sending geysers of salt water erupting skyward. The shock of frigid ocean hitting his fur system was like being struck by lightning made of ice. Every nerve ending screamed warnings as his body temperature began its race against time and hypothermia. But polar bears were not helpless in water. Kodiak's massive limbs began their powerful strokes almost instantly, his natural buoyancy and thick layer of blubber keeping him afloat despite the crushing cold. His black eyes swept the surrounding water, searching for the shadow he knew was closing in. The scent of shark grew stronger with each breath, metallic and ancient, speaking of depths no land creature was meant to explore. Deep Blue struck from below with the force of a living torpedo. Her massive bulk surged upward through the water column, jaws agape to reveal the cathedral of teeth that had ended countless lives in the ocean depths. The attack came from directly beneath Kodiak's floating form, a classic ambush that had proved lethal to every other creature she had ever hunted. But polar bears were not seals, and Kodiak's reflexes had been honed by survival in one of Earth's most hostile environments. The bear twisted in the water with surprising agility, his massive paw connecting with Deep Blue's approaching snout in a blow that would have shattered the skull of any terrestrial predator. The impact sent shockwaves through both creatures, driving the shark's head sideways while Kodiak used the collision to propel himself away from those terrible jaws. Blood clouded the water where claws had found purchase on cartilage, mixing with the crimson already staining the Arctic Sea. Deep Blue's head snapped back from the devastating blow, her brain processing pain signals that few creatures had ever managed to inflict. The force behind the bear's strike spoke of power that rivaled her own devastating bite force. But pain was simply data to be analyzed and overcome. She rolled in the water with fluid grace, her massive bulk turning to face the swimming bear with renewed calculation. This opponent demanded tactics she had never needed to employ. Kodiak's powerful strokes carried him toward a larger ice floe floating nearby, his survival instincts driving him toward any solid surface that might offer advantage. But the water was Deep Blue's domain, and she had no intention of allowing escape. Her massive tail drove her forward with mechanical precision, each sweep covering distances that would exhaust lesser predators. The gap between hunter and hunted closed with mathematical certainty. The battle raged for what felt like eternities. Two forces of nature locked in combat that defied every law both predators understood. Blood painted the Arctic waters crimson as tooth met claw, ice met ocean, and legends collided in violence that would echo through the frozen wasteland forever. In the end, both titans withdrew, battered but unbroken, each having faced something beyond their evolutionary comprehension. The Arctic winds swept across the shattered ice, carrying whispers of the day when impossible became inevitable. Nature had witnessed something unprecedented, a clash that proved, even in the harshest corners of our planet, new stories of survival continue to unfold. What did you think of this ultimate showdown? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more incredible tales from the wild.